Do you want to strike from the shadows, unleashing a torrent of destruction as you flicker in and out of reality? Do you want to become a death-powered murder machine that your enemies struggle to see, let alone pin down? What is going on, Guardians? Dorvarich here, and in this video I will be showcasing an extremely aggressive Nightstalker build that takes the conventional defensive Void Hunter and turns it on its head, thanks to a combination of our newly re-enabled exotic armor piece and any of 3 exotic weapons that all have excellent synergy with it. This build allows you to run around with some of the largest damage buffs achievable in Destiny, while being nearly unkillable with non-stop healing, invisibility, and damage reduction. In the background you're seeing some solo Grandmaster Nightfall gameplay, so we're locked 25 power under level, and this build melts through everything. We're constantly flickering in and out of invisibility, striking hard and fast as we dance around the battlefield. I'm forcing this build in an arc burn GM for demonstration purposes, but just imagine what this would do to an activity with a void burn. Now let's get to the build explanation. This build is centered around the newest hunter exotic, Gyrfalcon's Hauberk, which was disabled almost immediately upon release due to an exploit but was just now given back to us. Gyrfalcon's does a lot of things, but most notably it gives us a 35% damage buff for 6 seconds upon exiting invisibility, which is one of the highest empowering buffs in the game. Note that the buff is not refreshable, so we can't get a fresh 6-second timer until the previous instance of the buff has worn off. Since we get the buff upon exiting invisibility, we're using aspects that allow us to enter and exit invis as frequently as possible. Vanishing Step makes us invisible every time we dodge, and Stylish Executioner makes us invisible every time we kill a void debuffed enemy. Normally, Stylish Executioner would be limited by our ability to debuff enemies using our abilities, but we're using weapons that apply void debuffs innately, so between our abilities and our weapons this will be going off nonstop. For Fragments, since we're packing so much into this build, every fragment is core. We're using Echo of Instability, Undermining, Starvation, and Persistence. Instability makes all of our void weapons apply the volatile debuff for 10 seconds after a grenade kill, which gives us both damage and Stylish Executioner procs. Undermining applies the weaken debuff to anything our grenades hit, causing them to take 15% more damage. This makes it easier to secure grenade kills for volatile, gives us bonus damage against tough targets, and proc Stylish Executioner. Starvation gives us Devour on Orb pickup for heals on kills as well as chunks of grenade energy. Persistence extends the duration of all of our void buffs, which makes Devour chaining much easier and gives us more time to reposition with invisibility. As for our super, both options are strong, but I usually prefer Mobius Quiver due to the massive burst damage it can put out. While our subclass configuration is extremely powerful, there is a slight issue. Our only ways to proc Stylish Executioner are centered around the grenade cooldown, and technically the smoke too, but that thing barely counts. This leaves a hole in the build when we don't have our grenade or dodge up, and that is where our exotic weapon selection comes in. There are 3 options that all have excellent synergy with the build. We'll start with the obvious one, the Collective Obligation Pulse Rifle from the Vow of the Disciple raid. Collective Obligation's Void Leech ability allows it to absorb void debuffs when we shoot a debuffed enemy, and we can switch the fire mode to both give it a 20% damage boost and have it apply all of the absorbed debuffs back to anything we hit during that 15-second period. Suppression Grenade is worth considering when using Collective Obligation, since suppressing bullets are an incredibly strong effect to have alongside Weaken and Volatile. But this grenade does have the downside of being more difficult to secure kills with for volatile rounds, compared to something like Vortex or Magnetic. Either way, Collective Obligation fills the hole in the build perfectly with its Void Leech ability activating Stylish Executioner, while its other perk, Umbral Sustenance, makes it so that we practically never have to reload. If you don't have Collective Obligation, Vow of the Disciple will be farmable this coming week as of posting this video, so I highly recommend getting a group together to farm the final boss. The next weapon with excellent synergy with the build is the Heartshadow sword from the Duality dungeon. The Shot in the Dark perk stacks with Gyrfalcon's Hauberk for a disgusting amount of burst damage on the fully charged heavy attack, on top of being another source of weaken to activate Stylish Executioner. Heartshadow also gives us another source of invisibility in its charged heavy attack, so between that and its weakening capability, we will have the Gyrfalcon's damage buff constantly. The final weapon we're looking at is a forgotten exotic that sat in my vault collecting dust for over a year, until now. The Wavesplitter Trace Rifle. Wavesplitter has excellent synergy with the build with its supercharged battery perk. Upon collecting an orb, the beam will lock into its maximum intensity for 10 seconds, and it will suppress anything we shoot for more than a moment while the perk is active, activating Stylish Executioner. Since we're already aiming to pick up orbs for Devour, this fits into the build perfectly. To ensure that we never run out of ammo, we'll want to run a slightly different mod configuration when we use Wavesplitter, which I will touch on here shortly. As for stats, 100 resilience is the first priority, because 40% damage reduction is far too strong to not use in endgame content. Use this with appropriate resist mods on the chest piece to become extremely hard to kill. For nightfalls, double up on the burn, and for anything without a burn, I like to use one stack of each element for the most well-rounded resistances. The next priority is discipline because our grenades are such an important part of the gameplay loop, followed by mobility to get our dodge up faster. Our void fragments have significant stat penalties associated with them, so it's typical for our stats to suffer a bit. For armor mods, we're on an elemental well package. Reaping Wellmaker is our method of making elemental wells, and since dodge has such a short cooldown, this is the only Wellmaker mod we need. As for well payoffs, we're running Font of Might for a 25% damage buff to our void weapons when we pick up a void well, which stacks with every damage buff in the game including Gyrfalcon's, and Well of Tenacity, which gives us 50% damage reduction upon picking up a void well. Elemental Time Dilation extends the duration of Font of Might to 14 seconds, and Well of Tenacity to 9 seconds, giving us very little downtime on our buffs. The last combat style mod is Bountiful Wells to make 2 void wells at a time instead of 1 for more ability energy. For other mods, Harmonic Siphon on the helmet is crucial, as it allows us to generate orbs to kick off the Devour chain. On the cloak, we're using double utility kickstart, which gives a nice boost to our dodge cooldown for more frequent invisibility and well generation. For the Wavesplitter variant of the build, you'll want to drop Elemental Time Dilation and Bountiful Wells for Elemental Charge and extra reserves. Elemental Charge will give us 2 stacks of Charged with Light upon picking up one of our Void Wells, and extra reserves will turn that into special ammo drop chance. With this mod on, plus the Scavenger and Finder, you can use Wavesplitter to kill everything without a care in the world and never run out of ammo. Using another special weapon in the kinetic slot is perfectly feasible. And there you have it, an extremely aggressive Nightstalker build that will give you some of the largest damage buffs in the game, while being extremely hard to kill thanks to constant invisibility and healing on top of huge damage reduction. Thanks to Gyrfalcon's Hauberk, Void Hunter can now be played more aggressively than ever before. I hope you all enjoyed the build and breakdown. Drop a like if you found this video helpful or entertaining, and if you want to see more endgame oriented builds like this one, consider subscribing to the channel. You can also find all my builds in a playlist, which I'll link in the description. You can find a dim link to the build in the description too, as well as a consolidated image of the build at the end of the video. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. I'll do my best to answer every question that comes my way. I will leave you now with some legendary campaign gameplay, so you can see how this build performs in a more relaxed setting. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one, Guardians.